another episode of the Family Business Technical Version. I get the honor of introducing you to Shane Cooke, the CEO of Etiometry. His technology and their platform is life-saving, and I wanted to make sure that it was amplified and everyone was aware of it, on top of the fact that he's an incredible human being. Shane, thanks so much for being on.
Thanks for having me. Pleasure.
Yeah, and after our first conversation, I jotted down in my notes in big caps, which is get this guy on the camera. And so I hope you're all right with it because it's happening.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you could take just a minute and give everybody a bit of a snapshot of what Etiometry is, the platform, just so we can have a more robust conversation about it. But I want to make sure they understand where we're starting from.
Yeah, sure. Idiometry. So we have developed a best-in-class clinical intelligence platform. So this is a software platform that is utilized primarily in ICUs, critical care units throughout the world. And it's a very comprehensive platform that is pulling together data from this very data-rich, complex environment in healthcare. If you look at the ICU, it is the most costly environment in healthcare. You typically have less than 5% of a hospital's patients, but it may be 30% or more of the costs that is contributing to a hospital's costs on an annual basis. So it's a very complex environment with the sickest of the sick patients. Decisions really matter. Timely decisions matter. The right decisions matter. So our platform is pulling together all of this complex information, monitoring information, ventilator information, et cetera, in that environment. We then have FDA cleared algorithms that is pulling from that data and providing additional insights to help clinicians make the best and most timely decisions for their patients. Most notably, we wrap all of that in automated workflows. So we are driving efficiency, we're driving better decision making, and most importantly, published clinical outcomes showing that savings for the hospital from a cost perspective, and also from better patient care.
Yeah, for those of you that are not immersed in this part of medical device, the difference between making the decision for a patient, right or wrong, is life or death in some cases. And it's also, from a cost standpoint, the difference that it makes for the way that the hospital can operate in cutting their costs, it just means more doctors, more nurses, more equipment. It all is tied together. And it's amazing to me that this wasn't done earlier, to have
Mhm.
some kind of almost like a process for how to make good decisions. And so there's an AI component to this. I'm curious how the system learns in case that maybe a decision was made that it didn't go as well as they wanted to. Like, how does the system improve?
Sure. So all of the data that is coming continuously into our platform powers our algorithms. And these are algorithms that we have taken through the rigorous FDA process. We have 4 cleared algorithms. These AI algorithms are focused on the fundamental risks in the critical care environment, such as hypoxia or lack of oxygen delivery to the vital organs and tissues, hypercapnia for ventilated patients. So we are continuously showing you the risk that a patient is trending towards that state. And that's really the AI component that we are bringing in here. When you couple that with a longitudinal visualization of a patient, you're getting a full picture of a patient. If a patient is in the ICU, unfortunately, for a couple of weeks, you can track back and see that patient right from second one when they came in all the way through. You can look at all of their information. It's all captured right there. So that in and of itself, utilizing the platform for rounding for event reviews. If a patient has an adverse event like a cardiac arrest, for instance, you can see all of that information right in the platform, and that actually helps care teams get around the screen and look at this and say, what could we have done? What were some of the signs that we could have looked at? So from a quality improvement perspective, it's a very important tool for care teams to, number one, all be looking at the same thing and being on the same page, communicating the same information, and number two, tracking back and seeing what they could have done differently. In the moment, algorithms get the attention of clinicians of either if a patient was deteriorating and they needed to escalate care or do an intervention, that can be background information and really good situational awareness of what is happening with that patient so they can make the best decision in the moment. Um, Conversely, you can also use the same algorithm for what if the patient is more stable? Can you start weaning them off of their ventilator or off of vasoactive meds, to your point? Getting them out of the ICU sooner and opening that bed up for another patient, that's really important for hospital throughput. It helps with hospital economics, but most importantly, it's better for the patient. Gets them out of the most severe, complex care situation in the hospital, and hopefully to a less severe situation on a floor bed.
Well, it's interesting to think about it from a couple perspectives. Number one, with there being a nursing shortage, and it seems like there's a trend that there are less and less physicians going to medical school or coming out and staying in the profession. Now you're understaffed. So on top of all of this, you have this need for help of helping you manage how many patients, how many beds are you talking about here with every kind of indication you can imagine. I mean, this system is quite a backstop for all of that.
It is. We call it a force multiplier.
Yeah.
When in any industry, when you're looking at a situation where technology can help um, uh, extend the care or extend the in-depth nature of what you're trying to do to more people, that's where technology comes in. And in this case, in the ICU, being able to look at our visualization and see how all of the patients in the unit are doing, that helps perhaps an understaffed unit understand where they need to spend their time. So that's just one aspect of it.
Yeah, well, I learned this firsthand when my dad had his heart attack. the the emotion attached to when there's a nurse handoff, when there's a change in shift.
Yeah.
You get attached to this nurse. She's taking care of your father, and all of a sudden, someone comes in who may not be aware of what's going on, doesn't really care what's going on, whatever the case may be. And your system does a great job of helping to bridge that, I would think. Yes?
Yes, it's a very common use case, one of many of our technology of having it used for nurse handoffs. So a new nurse comes on shift, they look at our screen, they review what happened during the past shift. They can really get a sense for where that patient is, where they're going. Yeah, very common use case in every one of our sites. Rounding, of course, which happens every shift. That is also a very common use case of the platform. And frankly, um, with it being a web-based platform, the access is quite wide-ranging. It can be right by the bedside. You can be at home and get a call and log in and see the exact same information. It's often used in command centers or at workstations, nursing stations, etc. So
Hmm.
having it be everywhere, everybody's seeing the same information. That is one of the key benefits of just optimizing care team communication, for sure.
Now, this is maybe an obvious question to you, but not to me. Is there an inclusion or an incorporation of someone's health history, their EMR, their allergies, their all that pieces? So when they get admitted to the ICU, does all of that get integrated right away?
It depends on the short answer is we can get that information. We are very tied in with the electronic medical records, whether it be Epic or Cerner. We partner with both, and we're in their app portals, so it makes integration easier in a hospital. We're getting more and more information from the electronic medical records, and frankly, a lot of it is per site, per the discretion of the clinicians of what they want to see, what they want incorporated. We can customize and work with them on that. But yes, a lot of that information, demographics, et cetera, can come right into our platform.
I would think that's a huge time saver.
Yeah.
You can get everything because at that moment it's an emergency in many cases. This is all happening real time. I mean, your platform was a Frost and Sullivan Award winner.
Mhm.
You've had, I think it's 10 FDA approvals.
Yeah, we
Eh,
just got our 10th. a couple of months ago, which was more focused on the recent FDA's guidelines on cybersecurity. So,
Yeah. So yeah, cybersecurity was my next question. You're reading my questions. So I wanted to delve into that first. Is how much did it change getting that kind of recognition? You're getting all of this news, and people keep seeing your name and company pop up. Like, does it change anything for you from either investment or amplification of the signal of your company, or how does that all play into it, or does it not do that much at all?
no, I think it does. I think that if you look at companies of our size of, employee base and just size of a company as we're growing rapidly, um, to have 10 FDA clearances is an anomaly. Most companies our size do not. So it's something that we take a lot of pride in. We focus a lot on the regulatory work that we do. We have a great team in place. Investors certainly notice that. I think it gives them confidence and credibility to know that the company really has a history of continuous innovation. That's 10 FDA clearances over 10 years. We're continuously updating to meet the needs and exceed the needs of our customer base. So yeah, I think it's very important. And it also is important to new sites that we're talking with, to know that we have the cybersecurity clearance and there's continuous path upward of the technology. There are changes happening all the time, and we're always iterating and innovating.
Yeah, the cybersecurity piece is it's really sobering. When you don't think about it because it's the standard human feeling is that it's not going to happen to me. No one's going to take my data. It's not going to affect my life. No one's going to ever do that to me. But let's be a little doomsday-ish just for a minute. And like, what are
Yeah.
the things that can happen to somebody if the cybersecurity is not in line, like the way your device is?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it could be that data. Like, you saw recently, like ransomware attacks in hospitals. I think it's the one of the biggest risks is just shutting down operations for critically ill patients. That's not what you ever want to have
I
happen.
mean, that's horrifying.
Um, yeah, and a couple of our sites have gone through this, unfortunately, where they had to really shut things down, and it's yeah that's certainly a risk. But I think anything that is getting connected data, if there's a risk for any of that data to not be contained within the hospital environment, and they do not have those strict cybersecurity guidelines, I think it's always a risk for any company and for the hospital especially.
Yeah, I mean, I know from a regulatory standpoint, there's been consistent upgrading and making sure that when you're submitting your 510K or PMA, the importance of cybersecurity and how that's
Sure.
becoming a bit of a, a watchword. I think I just created
Hmm.
that for what
Yeah.
folks are doing there for sure. Well, I'm glad to see that you guys are making it a priority because I think once it becomes the norm and standard of care, it'll increase as long as people don't put it aside because I think that sometimes that happens. They're so focused on the therapy of what their device does, they forget
Right.
the other adjacent parts to it. Correct me if I'm wrong on some of these statistics. 36% reduction in length of stay in the ICU due in part to your system, and 41% reduction in readmission rate to the ICU thanks to your system. Would you say those are accurate stats?
That's correct. We actually have several published studies showing ICU reductions in ICU length of stay ranging from 18% up to 36% in the various studies.
Wow.
Um, we actually just had a study published about a month ago where we were automating one of our workflows, an extubation readiness workflow for ventilated patients, which led to 30% reduction in time on ventilation for a patient, and then 20% hospital reduction in hospital length of stay for those patients in that study. So that's another recent study that we just had published.
That's an extraordinary statement. I mean, you're
Mhm.
you're being humble. I mean, that's a massive number.
Yeah, it is massive, and it's and frankly, we spend a lot of time and focus on clinical evidence. Just due to the nature of our platform, it's automatic data collection. The data is there. for the hospital's usage, for quality improvement professionals, for clinical researchers to drive evidence. We collaborate with, geez, I don't know what the percentage is. It's a pretty high percentage of our customer base. We are collaborating with them on clinical studies. And our data science team helps out there. And we've had 4 studies published this year. So on averaging 1 a month, right there.
Huh. That's I'm just impressed with you. I was from the first call, so I'm so glad you're on here. No, if I remember right, you're partners with a few substantial medical device corporations themselves. Can you talk about
Right.
that?
Yeah, sure, sure. So we are partnered with Danaher, and especially their subsidiary Radiometer,
Hmm.
where we are partnering with them from a commercial perspective, and we've done some work with them on clinical evidence as well. But they've been a great partner to work with.
Now, for you, it shouldn't come as a big surprise. I mean, you already had considerable amount of success in your career before you came to etiometry. Let's talk a bit about that. So, what are some of the lessons you learned from Cheetah and that sale to Baxter, and some of the things that you brought with you?
Yeah, yeah. Some of the lessons I learned really along the way is I've had the good fortune. I've spent about really the first half of my career in large organizations and just kind of grew up professionally at Covidian. Loved it there. Got exposure to so many different aspects of business. I started out in sales and went up through marketing and then strategic roles and corporate development type of roles. And it was fantastic. I learned so much. But at the end of my time at Covidian, I was spending a lot of time with startups, and I just really liked that small company environment. So I decided to take a shot on it, and I left Covidian in 2014 and joined Cheetah Medical. Um, and so, left a 50,000 person company and joined a 50-person company. And so that was kind of a, culture shock on day one, but absolutely loved it. I just loved the um, fast pace, wearing many hats. Really, it really matched up well with the skill sets that I have of just trying to be as versatile as possible and good experience in a wide range of things. So really going through the Cheetah experience, as soon as I got there day one, it was really about market creation. Like, how do you create a market and really emphasize the need that is out there and the problem that you're solving, and matching up with that with your technology and just the impact that it can have. So, focus is a key lesson that I learned from that. With like many small companies, you have a technology that could have many potential applications, but you can't be everything to everybody. Focusing on your perfect patient population and what you can really solve for those perfect patients, to start, and then branching out from there was a key lesson that we learned at Cheetah. Um, Great experience there. Was there 5 years. We were acquired by Baxter, and then I had a decision to make. Do I go with Baxter, or do I go with another small company? And that's what led me to Ediometry.
Well, once you're bit by the bug, we have found in our
Yeah,
25 years of doing this that most
yeah,
people, especially if they have a good exit and something
yeah,
positive happens, they usually want to go to another one. They take
yeah.
a month off because they can't sit still any longer than that, and then they go back to work. So I've always wanted to ask this question, and I've never really had the opportunity. Considering what I do for a living, we perpetually are building companies, and most of them are smaller companies like yours.
Mhm.
And the I would say that if you want to call it pushback that we get from most either board members, investors, or executives that exist at the company already is they look like a big company person. And yet you were, in essence, a big company person and someone gave you a shot. So when you interview, I don't know, pick any role at your company and you see that they're 12 years at J&J, what goes through your mind? How do you interview for that? Because you would know better than anybody what it
Yeah.
takes to leave a big company and go to small and be successful. So I'm curious how you not rationalize, that's not the right word. How do you interpret that?
Yeah, it's a fantastic question. It's something that I dig into in whenever I see that in interviews, when looking at a resume. I really, I really think it's about drilling down, because what you often hear about in those situations is, tell me about this project that you have on your resume and how it went. Well, we had a great team and we did this. And okay, what was your specific role on that project? What did you do? And it's really just drilling down to that level to understand a couple of things. Number one, can this can this candidate move at a really fast pace and do so, not necessarily in a big team environment. So for instance, it's great to have a great idea, but now you have to go execute that same idea that you just came up with. Are they able to do that? So it's really digging in at a deeper level within an interview of, drilling down into, what role they specifically had on various teams, which you tend to have large, good sized teams and larger organizations. And then it's really focusing on key attributes. And for me, I I look first and foremost about curiosity. When you're teasing out how curious someone is, if you're in a spreadsheet and you see something that doesn't make sense, what do? Do you just let it slide, or do you go spend another hour digging into it and figuring out what led to that and what are the ramifications of that? That's really where I see employees that, even if they spend a lot of time in a big company, that curiosity and the adaptability, they can be really successful in a small company environment.
That's funny you should say that, because that is exactly the question I ask. The analogy I give is, you're at a table of all your friends at dinner, and someone can't remember this movie they saw and the actor that was in it that they really liked. Can you go back to your salad, or do you have to look it up? Do you have this intense need to know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
if they go, no, I just go back to my salad, I'm like, yeah, you're not for us.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
literally can't move it. Call it OCD, call it whatever you want. I have to know that that was Jack Nicholson. Then I can go back to my
yeah,
steak.
yep.
I can't not know. And it applies to the other thing we ask is, what are you reading right now?
Oh yeah,
And
sure,
and
sure.
and if they say I'm reading nothing, you're like, okay. What do you read any websites? Are you on any
Yeah,
kind
yeah,
of list that you get things that pop up on your feed every morning? Do you read
right,
anything? And
right.
usually they say, well, yes, I do this and this and this. And like, okay, well, what do you love about that? What did you read about that? What did you find interesting? Because the key is, do they look to read the next article? Not that article, not that book, it's the next one.
Yeah,
Do I click through because I want to understand how this worked, or I
sure.
want to read the next book in the series, or whatever it is?
Yep.
And that's what I look for. And it's funny you should say that, because that's usually, curiosity is what we look at every time. And I ask the question
That's
exactly the way
critical.
you do
Yeah,
about, well, that's great that the team did that, but what did you do? What was your
yeah,
contribution?
yeah,
I mean,
exactly
are
right.
you, it feels like you're working here, bud, because that's exactly how we do it. Um,
That's
well,
great.
that's terrific. So I don't know much about you, though. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in a very, very small town in upstate New York, Philadelphia, New York. If you can, yeah, you can Google that and find it. Very small town up near the Canadian border, Thousand Islands area,
Hmm.
right near Fort Drum, major army base up there in the northeast, northwest of New York State. So
And where'd you go to undergrad? Where'd you go to school?
undergrad at the University of Rochester in New York. Yeah,
Yeah, you're one of those smart
yeah,
guys.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a great school. It's very underrated.
Yeah, it is.
Rochester is one of those
It's small.
places. Yeah, but there's usually brilliant people walking
Yeah.
around there. So, and where do you live now?
I live south of Boston.
Okay.
Yep, and about 20 miles south of Boston. Our office is in the seaport in Boston. Yeah. Been here 20 years this year, actually. So
And you're
yeah,
good with the whole New York Boston rivalry. You
yeah.
don't hold any
Uh,
grudges.
I'm good. I'm still a New York sports fan, so I've enjoyed some good days here with being a Giants fan. Yeah.
That's terrific. I mean, you're one of those guys who's had this almost like a poster child kind of career. I'm sure for you, you're like, it was pretty hard. I'm not trying to minimize it. What I mean is the ascension, the success, obviously. I'm curious how much of it was intentional. In other words, when you went to school and you came out and you found your first sales job, did you want to go into healthcare? Was that premeditated? When you went into marketing, was that premeditated? Like all these kind of movements up, or was it just an opportunity presented itself and you took it?
Yeah, it's funny. I think about that a lot, and I look back and I look at my career in different chapters, and they were all based on key decisions I made at the time. So, I think part of it was intentional, and certainly at a certain point in my career became very intentional. But I think early on, I got out of undergrad. I had a ton of student loans. It was, thinking about what can I do for a couple of years before, and pay off some loans before I go back to grad school. Um, my my dad was a sales rep growing up, so it was kind of ingrained in me. And I had a friend from college who said, "Hey," it was who graduated a couple of years before me, and said, "Hey, you should check out this pharmaceutical sales thing. You can make some good money, get into healthcare, and it's a growing industry." So I gave it a shot, and I liked it. I liked it. The pharmaceutical sales aspect of it, but I could see after a couple of years that I didn't want to be a lifelong sales rep because I really wanted to be, who are the ones, working with the sales rep around the messaging and the marketing strategy, and that was really more of what I wanted to do. So then I sought out companies where they promoted into marketing. So that was very intentional, the move to Covidian, because that's routinely what they did, and it worked out. Um, and then from there, it was, uh, certainly wanting to get as much experience as possible in all aspects of business. And then I went back and got my MBA, which was great. Um, but really, when I left Covidian, and that kind of closed off the large company portion of my career, everything since then has been very intentional. And it's really being driven by, I want to be in mission critical situations, with technologies that, as we spoke about earlier, are really impacting patient care, impacting families, and of course, better for the healthcare system overall. So, it was very intentional coming to Ediometry post the Baxter acquisition of Cheetah, where I had choices to make. I love the people at Baxter. Joe Almeida was a fantastic leader, and he was at Covidian. He was at Baxter at that time during the acquisition. I knew a lot of other people there. I could have been very happy and comfortable there, but I really wanted to go towards that, stay in the small company arena, and really with a technology that I could see was and had massive potential to greatly impact the lives of patients.
Yeah, I mean, you're a really sincere guy, and in our brief interactions, I mean, you and I have something in common. We're just family first, second, and last kind of people, and that's it. Now, you've been married for how long?
Coming up on 17 years in 2 months.
And
Yeah.
how many mini me's you got?
Just one, just
Oh, it's just
one.
the one.
Just turned 14. Yeah,
Yeah,
a couple 2 weeks ago.
awesome. Well, listen,
Yeah.
it's interesting how some people can make an impression so fast, and you've got that knack, and it's funny. You don't come across as a sales guy to me. You come across incredibly genuine in your approach, and
I
so
appreciate that. Thank
yeah,
you.
no, it's this what's fun about this whole conversation is trying to bring to light folks that are making a difference and their companies are making a difference, because the biggest part of what I like to do is to make sure that folks who are starting up their own companies or who are thinking about going to a startup or who are trying to raise money, that it happens. Like
Mhm.
you can make it. Only 15 to 20% of the companies that start up
Yeah.
make it, but that's 15 to 20% more than zero.
Yeah.
And so I
Yeah.
like to shine a light on the ones who are doing it. And I know that you're still fighting the good fight. It's not over by any stretch of the imagination. And I'm sure you're still going through all the same machinations everyone else is going through. But the progress that your company has made, because you had given me some idea of some of the sales you've made and some of the hospital groups you're working with, I mean, that's amazing achievements. And so let's close with this. Like, what's next for Etiometry? Where is it headed? And where are we going to be a year from
Yeah.
now when I talk to you again?
Yeah, yeah, and even to, just to address some of that, when I should definitely note that, first and foremost, the team we have at Ediometry is just top notch. I was fortunate to join a company with two of the founders who are still on my management team today, the CTO and the COO, Evan and Demeter. Two of the founders of the technology, aerospace engineers, brilliant guys, had a vision for where this could go, and they brought me into the fold. And the partnership that we created, back she's 5.5 years ago when I joined the company, it's just been amazing. And we've rounded out the team, and I brought in some fantastic industry, veterans in sales and strategy and CFO and marketing. So it's great. And the sky's the limit for us. So really, where we are headed right now is just heads down, focused on growth. The company started in pediatric ICUs. And over the last several years, we have made our way and fully entrenched now in the adult ICU market, but we're just scratching the surface. So we have a lot of growth ahead of us. That's really what the team is heads down focused on right now. Getting into more health systems. We continue to sign them at a pretty rapid pace right now. So that's really where we're headed, is continuing to innovate, continuing to develop best-in-class evidence that we do, and all of the outcomes that we are showing, clinical outcomes and operational outcomes. And really, it's just to grow. That's the phase that we are in.
Well, it's pretty clear that that's the trajectory you're on.
Yep.
Well, thanks so much for being on. I mean, it really is a pleasure to talk to somebody who just seems to have their priorities straight and a grasp on how best to help patients. So everyone, this has been Shane Cooke, CEO of Echometry. Please pay attention to this company. They are absolutely making a difference, and one day may make a difference for someone in your family.
Thanks so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
You bet. My pleasure.